Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Coffee and Football, presented by John Donovan and Longhorn Wealth Management Group. I'm your host, Blake Monroe, where I'm joined daily by Bobby Burton and Jerry Hamilton, along with Marcus Myers on this Marcus Myers Monday. So thanks for joining us, Marcus. Tell us where you're checking in from this morning, what you're drinking, get your questions in. We'll get to those here in a little bit. Got a lot to talk about, fellas, and I guess let's just start with the portal. that's what
we got to start with Bobby's 7 false starts this morning. So we're starting the show at 1st and 35. Are we going to make a first down, Bobby?
I feel a little bit like Cam Williams against who was that against that he had like 4 or 5? Kansas in his first start, Kansas State.
1st and 35, draw.
Yeah, my computer, I think we figured out it's not my internet connection, it's my computer that won't keep a charge, guys. So we got bigger problems than just internet connection. We got to go pay the man here later today, I think, to get this going. Thank you, Marcus, for joining us as well. Marcus Myers alongside. There are a lot of news and notes going with the transfer portal. Just to give you a quick update, 16 commitments now for the Longhorns, picking up Marcus Boswell, a linebacker from Akron yesterday. Not a name that we were really tracking, but you piece it all together and it makes a lot of sense. Young man played at Lake Travis, was a 2024 all-district player in 26-6A for Lake Travis, then goes and takes a year off. It's either a prep school or a semi-pro type deal. And then he goes into college at Akron, records 19 tackles this year at Akron as a true freshman. He was 6'1", 185, 190 in high school. Now he's up to 6'1", 220. His father is Mark Boswell, a former Canadian Olympian that graduated from the University of Texas, went to 2 Olympics actually in Athens and Sydney in the high jump. So he has some impressive genes. We'll see what he does to this linebacker group. I think it just adds depth, Jerry Hamilton. Yeah. Texas now with 16 guys that have signed with Texas. They have 22 that have put their name into the transfer portal and either transferred out or on the way out. I will say this, there still is one guy out there that is a Longhorn that has put his name into the transfer portal that we do not believe has been announced yet. I think Texas and he were trying to work something out as late as yesterday. So we'll see where that goes. Jerry, your thoughts on Marcus Boswell and Marcus, yours as well, buddy.
Yeah, I think the big thing is the depth part, and that doesn't mean somebody can't zip past expectations. He does have a year of college experience, and he did go to that prep school after high school to add the weight. I think he was a late developer physically in that regard. But I think, look, coming in, it adds that depth. Texas needed one more guy at the linebacker spot. I was kind of uncomfortable with what they had from a depth perspective. With Rasheem Biles, with Ty Anthony Smith, then with Justin Cryer, who's an A-gap, B-gap thumper. That's going to be his role, not dropping coverage, not really as a blitzer. That is going to be his role. And then, so that made Tyler Atkinson, if Brad Spence, and I think Brad Spence is kind of that, what is he going to play? I think that depends on if Texas gets another edge overhang linebacker when Muschamp's in the 3-4. If they don't, then he may play more in that role. I've been told he's going to practice at both this spring anyways, whether it's that overhang linebacker or an off-ball linebacker. But, when you looked at it, you're like, okay, so Tyler Atkinson comes in essentially second team right now. And look, Tyler Atkinson can be a tremendous football player, but that's not normally how it works with these young guys. They normally come in as a third team and work their way up. So I feel better about the depth because there will be injury. You're not going to go the whole season without injury at linebacker. So there's going to be injury at that position. And I feel a lot better about the depth now, have added another guy from the portal that has a year of MAC, D1 experience, Marcus. And also from a special team standpoint, we'll see if he jumps as high as his dad. If he does, watch out for him on special teams. I'll say that.
He's going to leap the wedge, Marcus. Yeah. What do you think?
Well, if he does that, man, you may have like another B Rob on your hands and somebody can get up there and block some kicks. So I wouldn't be mad at it. But good morning. Love, being back with you guys. I think it's a good pickup, right? Like when we talked about this last week, Jerry, Bobby, I was kind of the same mind that you wanted to have, some more depth in that linebacker room. And this is another one of those situations that kind of works out where a kid gets to come, essentially back home and likely isn't, one that that costs you a ton, but can be a depth piece. Has had a little bit of development. I had heard kind of back during the holidays that he was in the Austin area working out. With some former UT guys that were pretty good. And I think you can actually see some of that footage on his Twitter page. But bigger guy that still has some ability to move, and I think. To Jerry's point, I think it sets up a lot better where, a lot of folks were, of the mind that Tyler Atkinson was going to come in and, just play immediately. And, to your point as well, Jerry, yeah, typically you would see a guy, maybe kind of more of a third string and then move their way up. I think, we were kind of having higher expectations for Atkinson in general, and he's already on, campus and enrolled in classes and doing the whole nine. So I think this still sets up where towards the back half of the season, you probably expect him to have a bigger impact than earlier. And this gives you a bit more flexibility with that linebacker room. So, as this thing is, kind of rounded out, at this point, if I've pretty much kind of gotten everything on my wish list for the most part. Ideally would still love to be able to pick up an interior lineman, but there's still time for that. There's still going to be names that are going to populate. I know Bobby Yellow probably covered this, but guys just had to have been in by last week, but formally they still may show up in the system over the next couple of days, with today being MLK Junior Day. So happy MLK Junior Day to everyone as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I think a lot of these names are going to populate on Wednesday in the portal is what's going to actually happen, guys. So that will be interesting. So one extra day of waiting there for people wondering if anybody else from Texas is going to show up in the portal or who else might show up in the portal that Texas has interest in. Also have the national championship game tonight and a 5-day grace period after that. Who could jump in the portal? We'll get into the game a little bit later, some thoughts on the game, because it's going to be an interesting one. And I don't know what Michael Irvin's going to do with his time after this game tonight. He'll have to figure out what else to do in South Florida.
Hey, we do need to talk about that game, but let's talk about first some games that happened yesterday and over the weekend. And that's the NFL games. It basically turned into the University of Texas at Denver on Saturday in the Broncos win. I mean, what? Lil Jordan Humphrey had a touchdown. PJ Locke had a pick. What else happened? There was something that somebody else did something.
It was a fumble recovery. Roach.
Malcolm Roach had a sack. And look, I mean, Texas has a lot of guys playing right now. Blake found this today. Blake, explain this one.
Yeah, so most players on NFL rosters, active, of course, in the AFC, NFC championships. Texas has 10. That's number 1. Alabama with 9. LSU, Michigan, Ohio State are the next closest at 7. And actually, this is more for social media, so sorry the graphics kind of squished here. I'm still working on this. But Texas will have 13 because you have Brandon Jones on IR with the Broncos. And then Quandre Diggs and Bill Norton are both on their practice squads. Diggs with Seahawks, Norton with the Rams. But yeah, lots of Longhorns playing in the championships this weekend.
Byron Murphy looked really good, by the way. I don't know if y'all watched that.
He looked like there was one play where like he split a double team. The guy was like on his neck. He shrugged him off. And like not even hyperbole. Like it's literally what happened. It was one of those deals where they caught it from multiple angles. He's been playing incredible. So it's really cool to see those guys doing so well at the next level.
When I looked at this graphic before the show, what my overwhelming thought is on things like this right now when I see them? How many of these guys with Texas have not signed out of high school now because of the portal this year? Barron, Roach, Murphy, Ford, Locke. Just something we always have to keep in mind in this new day and age. Those guys would not have been signed by Texas out of high school right now.
Or if they were, likely would have portaled out pretty quickly.
Yeah.
I don't know that we can go back and really say that. I will say, to Jerry's point, there are 2 guys that definitely don't fit the mold. Like, you can debate the DBs. Like, some defensive back coach falls in love with a guy, Jerry, and all of a sudden. But Texas seems to have a type on the interior, and it seems to be bigger guys. Yep. So Murphy and Ford, and Poona Ford to this day is 5'11". I mean, he hadn't got any taller. And if Texas, in the number one recruiting class and all this other stuff, took a 5'11" defensive tackle these days, people would be like, what are you talking about? Right. Yeah. Byron Murphy, 6'1.5". Same type thing, was under 300 pounds as a high school senior. Those are the two that I look at and say, they wouldn't even talk. They wouldn't recruit them. And it also says this, and I want to try to say it this way. I hate when you have absolutes and absolutes aren't accurate. I mean, we know that one of the best edge rushers in history is Von Miller. There's nothing about Von Miller that tells you that he should be, if you just look at him, his number, that he's going to be a guy that wears a gold jacket in the pro football.
Not out of high school.
Not out of high school. He's 6'1", 245, ran well, but NFL Hall of Fame good? No chance. Everybody thought he was a tweener. And so what I would say is, as we all look at this kind of stuff, just think to ourselves, there are always anomalies. There are always guys that break the rules. And a couple of those happen to be Longhorns and Poona Ford and Byron Murphy, in my opinion. And they're playing really, really good football right now, and happy for those guys. And I think, is it 10 total or 13 with IR?
Yes, 13 with IR.
Right,
10 total active, 13 total, 13 altogether.
John Bianco also put something out. It's going to be like the 20th of 21 years where Texas will have players in the Super Bowl of the last 21 years. So good stuff there for former Longhorns.
Guaranteed Super Bowl champion somewhere in there.
Yeah. By the way, just came across the board. The Bills, and I don't know how many people follow pro football, but this is a little bit of a football show. The Bills have fired Sean McDermott, the Buffalo Bills head coach. I mean, I know that he lost some big games, but he's a pretty good coach and got him to some big games. You know what I mean? It's like, goodness gracious. James Franklin in the NFL would have been fired 8 years ago. The 1-19 record in big games don't work in the NFL, I guess. No. Right? What do y'all – is it – it feels like it's quicker turnover in the NFL than it is in college football. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's certainly what it feels like. Firing a guy that pretty much did what he did, that's pretty strong statement for the Bills.
Yeah.
All right, Bobby, before we move on here, why don't you tell everyone this morning about John Donovan and Longhorn Wealth Management Group?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd like to thank our sponsor, John Donovan, President, Longhorn Wealth Management. This month, celebrating his 4th year of sponsoring Monday's Coffee and Football Show. Hook 'em, John. Thank you very much. John's a proud Texas Ex's Life member who truly bleeds burnt orange. His wife and 6 siblings are also UT grads. It's his family passion that led John to brand his firm, Longhorn Wealth Management Group, and dedicate it to providing investment, retirement, insurance, and estate planning services to Longhorn families and fans across the nation, which John has been doing for more than 30 years. John's looking forward to seeing who the final portal entrants are by Wednesday night, although we have until next Monday to see who also might come out of the national championship game tonight. The excitement and angst of it all makes for a lot of fun reading on the OTF site for sure. John wants to share his excitement for what UT is building for 2026 by offering OTF fans a free 90-minute private consultation via Zoom, phone, or even in person to allow John to gain an understanding of your financial circumstances and help you explore how working with a certified financial planner can help maximize your wealth, minimize your taxes, and ensure your legacy. Schedule your own free 90-minute private consultation. Just call the Longhorn Wealth Team, 972-707-4900, or schedule online, www.longhornwealth.net. John wishes everyone a safe and memorable MLK Day and says, hook 'em to you all. Hook 'em, John. Thank you.
Okay, well, we've talked the portal a little bit. It was also a busy weekend for Texas when it comes to high school recruiting. Jerry, what you got?
Yeah, and it definitely does still matter. Texas offered 20, and I'm going to get into more of the guys and that were on campus. But we're going to start with Ty Knutson, the quarterback offer in 27. We're kind of waiting to see what Texas would do. Look, this is not a 27 quarterback class where I think they were going to get in a big NIL battle with KJ Lacey and Diabell already being on campus, right? They showed interest in Kavian Bryant, but weren't going to go into that battle. And the kid wanted to go somewhere he thinks he can play earlier. But this is Ty Knutson. So the latest 27 quarterback offer out of Smithson Valley. What I would say about Ty is a really good ball handler. They switched up offenses recently here at Smithson Valley, won the back-to-back state titles. Good ball handler, does a really good job manipulating, playing in the pocket. He's an eyes down the field guy. He's a pocket style quarterback that has functional athleticism. He's not a dual threat guy. That's not what he is going to be. He's not as athletic as Arch Manning. He's not without athleticism. Like, he has more athleticism than Trey Owens or Malik Murphy coming out of high school. But he is a guy that has some development in front of him. Texas offered him. And I think the quarterback in this 27 class, whoever it is going to have to be a patient guy. There's going to have to be a lot of patience because you're coming in a year behind the competition to be the next guy. And so you're going to have some patience. But he was the quarterback offer. As I talk about more, this is Ty Knutson from Smithson Valley. As I talk about more from the junior day Saturday, it was a smaller group than usual, which is kind of fitting because I think we're going to see some smaller high school classes. Really good players. So the talent per capita this junior day was really high. Just weren't as many of those guys here. I want to mention that offensive line, Peyton Miller. I'm wearing the Anna hat. Peyton Miller from Anna High, the center. He was on campus. I think Texas at a pretty good spot there right now, but he'll go all the way through the June official visit process. Brian Swanson, the offensive tackle, the 4-star out of Dallas South Oak Cliff, same thing. I think Texas is in a good spot there. He will go through the process and the June official visit process, despite people putting picks in for him. Look, these guys could always change their timeline up a little bit, but right now the plan is to go through the June OVs and then make decisions like a high percentage of the kids do. Then one that was a little surprising that showed up, but shows interest, is Jimmy Callis, the 4-star, about top 150 level offensive lineman in the country out of Pittsburgh. This is his second time on campus on his own dime. He came down with his sister, who goes to Ohio State. A lot of people just have him pegged to go to Ohio State, but she's graduating this year, so she'll be gone. But Matt Campbell offered him, I think, the first day he was hired, and they're all in on him now too. If he leaves the Midwest, if he doesn't go to Ohio State or Penn State, I do think it would be Texas today. So Texas in on a lot of offensive line. Montre Jackson, a kid that Garland Lakeview, the corner, who we're having Rod do some film study on him. Texas leads for Montre Jackson. He's going to be a top 150 kid in the country, if not top 100, if not top 50, because he's 6'1 and a half, 175, and his goal is 10-2 in the 100 meters this year. And I'm here to tell you, if he hits 10-2, he's going to be ranked a lot higher than that at 6'1 and a half, 175. But a very physical downhill player at corner. Still learning the corner position, right? The transitions, the turn and runs. But Texas leads LSU, Oklahoma, and A&M, a couple others for him. So the talent level was there for the junior day for sure. The second offer that went out in 27 was Jasper Ngaku, who's a offensive tackle at Richardson High. Knows his family's close with the Acho family. That means he's going to Texas. Just a little background there. I first saw him a year ago when I went to see Jamion Winfield. And Jamion Winfield's a total beast. Could be a first rounder one day. But Jasper was there as well that day. He's a basketball player that's come to football. He's been a defensive lineman / offensive lineman. He's going to be an offensive tackle at the next level. Got his best football's way out in front of him, but Texas extended him an offer as well Saturday. Texas coaches will be out on the road tomorrow. Now, they lost some of those road days because you had to be in Austin for the portal. So, again, the calendar's totally messed up. And that January, you only have so many days you can get out on the road. And some of those you had to stay around Austin because you had portal visitors. So make any of it make sense. You can't. But the Texas staff will be on the road this week starting Tuesday to go see some of the top prospects, top targets in 2027. A few coaches were out in California last week. Will Muschamp, Kenny Baker, Johnny Nansen went out to see a bunch of defensive players. And that leads me to my last point about Junior Day. Kasi Curry 6'5", 290-pound defensive tackle, 3-tech out of Sierra Canyon, high school teammate and friend of Richard Wesley. He showed up for a 2-day visit for the junior day as well. First time on campus, I believe that was for him. But one of the top defensive tackles in the country in 27, he was on campus as well. Muschamp, Baker, Nansen, with to see him last week, got him on campus for junior day. And obviously he was hosted, spent a lot of time with Richard Wesley on that junior day visit. So a lot of talent. You can read more of that on ontexasfootball.com. I'll answer any of your questions you have on our junior day thread over there. My reactions threads or thoughts from junior day. Just come fire off questions and I'll answer them all that I can for you guys.
Really good, thorough stuff, Jerry. Hey, Marcus, Jerry's been talking. I've been halfway watching this quarterback. Pretty good quarterback, huh?
Yeah, I like him, man. Especially to be a young guy, and reminds me. I know it's a kind of somewhat lazy comp, but it reminds me a little bit of some of that early film we saw of Trey Owens. And so, to Jerry's point, he's not necessarily dual threat, but he's functional enough in his movement. And does a lot of the kind of eye candy stuff with the ball that you see, Sark, utilize in his offense when things are really humming, and, places the ball well. So, it looks like a kid that, is great to be in on early. I imagine, the further we go, as long as he continues to develop, he's probably someone that shoots up the boards. And so always good to be able to get, something like that, an offer out there early. So, kid looks good to me.
Jerry, how big is he?
6'3", 205-ish in that area code. I think he's run in the 4.7 range at camps and combines around. Obviously, he'll get out to Elite 11 this year, this coming up soon, which will be the Elite 11 regionals begin here in February. I think there's one in Texas in February. You also have the Under Armour camps coming to Houston and Dallas in late February, early March. So I'm sure he'll be at one of those. So he'll get a chance to go test and see where he's at from that standpoint too, compared to his last spring, summer numbers in that regard. But a kid who's put on a lot of weight. I think he's at about 19 pounds in the last year and a half. I think he was about 190 his first year starting as a sophomore. He lists himself at 209 now, whether he's 205, 207, 209. He's in the area code, right? Depends on what you eat and when you weigh. But he's gained about 15 to 19 pounds in the last year and a half.
I want to say this, just watching him there, the thing that grabs me, guys, ease of movement with his feet.
Yeah.
As he's dropping back, it doesn't look forced. It doesn't look like he's trying to push it or anything like that. That leads me to believe that when he is pushed, he's going to have a little bit more left in the tank. I thought that was a good looking quarterback, guys. I really do. I mean, easy thrower of the football. No hitches, no mechanical, like, oh God, this is wrong.
He has a calmness about him, right?
Yeah.
His feet in his body. There's a calmness there.
Really smooth.
Yeah, he's a smooth athlete. Would it surprise anybody if he said he played shortstop growing up or something like that? Those guys have those type of feet, just in their movement in the pocket. Hey, we have one more high school thing I want to bring up, Blake. I haven't showed this on the show, but Antoine, who I met at a high school basketball tournament, he was at the Friendswood beatdown of Iowa Colony in basketball Friday, 67-30. The entire Friendswood team out of Texas, on Texas football logo on their backpack. So I played at Friendswood High School. This is my give back to Friendswood High, where I played. My dad coached. So Bobby Burton, myself on Texas football, we purchased the backpacks for the Friendswood basketball team this year. So I had to change up the blue and white and put the On Texas football on there. I also love doing that because there's a lot of Aggie parents at Friendswood. And about 3 of their kids are on the team, so they'll always have this commemorative item from their kid's senior year.
That's cool.
I want to say this. Jerry Hamilton made that decision on his own.
Yes, true.
I got told after the fact that this was occurring.
Yes.
But I do like it.
That's cool. I think I told you before, Jerry, my godmother lived in Friendswood. So I spent a lot of time there growing up. And then down the street, one of my god sister's best friends, they live down the street, but we're also really close with oh gosh, what was my man's name that went to Milby? Houston Milby that passed. Basketball player.
Juwan McClellan?
No. Bud
Ford.
Yeah. So got to hang around the Friendswood area and some of those folks a lot growing up.
Yeah.
You
Hey,
talk about
Antoine,
Milby. That's Milby's my parents' alma mater.
Okay.
Hey, Blake, as we're looking and talking about this stuff, there are a couple of notes we need to talk about as it relates to the portal today. If you just joined us, Texas now up to 16 commitments, 22 exits. Jerry and Marcus, and I wrote this morning. Look, we have been running as a group. Okay, we have a group text. As a group, I want y'all to understand, everybody out there, that we have been running around like a chicken with our head cut off for the last month.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, we are texting. It's incessant. I mean, trying to figure out some things that are going on, passing along information, etc. Jerry, you and I have been doing this a long time.
Yeah.
Okay. And I can't recall a time when Texas has added 16 players in 2 weeks. Because that's really what has happened. I mean, portal opened January 2nd. It's now what? Is it the 20th, 19th? So 17 days, 16 days, really, if you just count yesterday. Texas has added 16 players. I've been covering recruiting a long time. Even back in the days when there was just that one signing day in February and everybody tried to 16 recruits in 16 days, 17 days.
Yeah.
I mean, it is a new craziness that is it is the new way of college football. And it is one of those things that I just don't know if people appreciate how much the roster has changed in a very short very short period of time.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, I'm actually, one of the things that's happened, I'm glad some colleges are starting to push back on some of this stuff with guys getting in the portal. I'm happy to see some of the pushback that's come on late in this portal window, because
What do you mean by that? What kind of pushback are you talking
Ole
about?
Miss with Princely, Duke with Mensa, right? I mean, look, there needs to be because Duke totally gets hosed on a deal like this, and there's too many late. These things can really affect team seasons on the 11th hour. I mean, they really, especially the quarterback position. So, but yeah, it's been hectic. It's just been as busy as it's ever been. It took me back, Bobby, to the last, when you used to even run National Recruiting Advisor, when I was just young into business, the last 2 weeks to the only February signing period. But it's still different because it feels NFL. It's transactional, straight transactional. So there's the NFL element to it, the pro element to it. So I think there's even more changing, just shifting and pivoting more so than even when there was one high school signing period in February. I think it's known more because it's social media has changed and coverage has changed and agents are involved and they want to get certain information out to manipulate prices and gain leverage. So that adds a different element to it. So yeah, it's like, I don't know if anybody's neck sore, but you turn like this for like 2 weeks and here everywhere. And it's like nothing I've ever experienced.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and then you think about it too, in the midst of that, Bobby, you're also bringing in your freshman class, the overwhelming majority of which reported last week. Right. So, I mean, when you think about that, you've brought in essentially like a third of your 85, right? I know it can go up to 105, but they're hovering around 85 scholarships or so right now, of which a third of it is brand new, and that's just a different, day and age and in a different environment that you work in. And I don't know, you track this stuff as best you can and you want to, kind of keep a guy on where guys land. And, by and large, like for me, I think one of the interesting things I also found was I think a lot of guys found some good landing spots for them, to be able to go to and have a chance at maybe some more immediate playing time. That being said, you didn't see anybody going to Ohio State or to Oregon or, for the most part, they were kind of taking a bit of a step back or, maybe in a Nick Brooks case, somewhat of a lateral move if you still view Alabama in that light. But outside of that, for the most part, it wasn't really like any of these guys were, supremely upgrading, if you will, in leaving Texas and going to a better program. It's just in some instances they felt maybe they had a quicker path to the field by going somewhere else. So,
hey Blake, bring up that graphic of where guys in the portal for Texas went. I think this is a good discussion because everybody's going to be following these guys. Trey Owens, great decision. Quarterback should drop down, go get 400 pass attempts. If you go crush it at Arkansas State, you're an instant millionaire in Power 4 football. That is the way of the world. Trey Wisner, obviously saw Smothers put up 840 yards at NC State last year. If Trey Wisner stays healthy, I think you can see him have a successful season. Jarrett Gibson will probably put up some yards at Purdue. Somebody went to Oklahoma. Who cares? DeAndre Moore, what will happen at quarterback? Jamie French, interesting decision. I don't agree with Jamie French on his decision. I would have gone to USF and make sure I catch 40, 50 footballs and then transfer back up. That's what I would have done. Jordan Washington, UNC. Nate Kibble, I think, he's probably going to have to go through a coaching change, but I think he made a pretty good decision there. Daniel Cruz will probably start for NC State. By the way, their quarterback did not go in the portal. I don't think CJ Bailey. That's who Miami originally wanted. He was from Northwestern High. Caleb Chester, I think, made a really good decision. I think that is a good spot for him. Santana Wilson will be interesting. Bo Barnes, I think, will play a lot at Kentucky. LaFau, obviously, has a great chance to start. Levon Johnson goes back to where he was, will probably be a starter at Maryland. A pretty good decision. So there's some guys on there that should show well, because I know Texas fans will be following these guys in their next stops. And I think Trey Owens made a great decision for his future.
What about two of the guys that aren't on here? Christian Clark decided to go to South Carolina. I think that happened after our Friday show.
Great spot for him.
And then also Nick Brooks, the offensive lineman, going to Alabama. To y'all's point, though, it doesn't feel like Texas. I think Texas lost depth, but I don't know that Texas. I don't know how to say this. I don't know that they lost. I don't know that they got cut too deep. Does that?
I don't think they lost any true difference makers, Jerry. I don't mean it to sound like disparaging, right? Like when you just talk about the on-field production, they didn't lose any plus guys. I think, to your point, Jerry, there's a couple that maybe I would have liked to keep in a perfect world. But some of that was a decision point on theirs as well, where maybe the dollar amount that they wanted, it just didn't make sense for what their role was going to be on the team this year. And if, they've maybe been willing to, flex on that some and move forward, then next year you have, maybe a different kind of discussion, but that's not what took place. So, I don't know. I don't find myself, and we all could be wrong on this, right? But I just don't find myself looking back. And I know some folks may push back on the Parker conversation. For me personally, I don't view him that way. Largely because I think, and we've discussed this some, I think a lot of his production came off of being really the only receiver that had any time with Arch in the spring. Everybody else was out. And so I think he had a lot of good connectivity with Arch. And so, early in the season, that's where you saw, Arch be able to kind of trust the most. But as you got a guy like Emmett Mosley a little more healthy, in my opinion, he pretty quickly, surpassed him. So I think you're right, Bobby. I don't think any of them cut too deep. I think maybe you would have liked to have, held on to one. And, I know I said it when it happened, and I still feel that way. I wish we could have, held on to Bo Barnes, but that was as much of a decision that he made as one that we did.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing here is there's two things always when I look at a portal, like portal outs, portal ins. DeAndre Moore and Trey Wisner were pretty big leaders for you, right? I mean, they did everything they were ever asked to do at Texas. So who is going to replace that? Because those guys do have value outside of who they are on a Saturday, right? Those guys had value. CJ Baxter, great leader, even though it's hard to be a leader over time when you're not healthy, right? Roschon Johnson's different because he was healthy. He was just a second-team player. He's the only leader of a team that's ever been a second-team running back I've ever seen, by the way. That's how great he was. But you look at that. The only areas it hurts you potentially is if you have a rash of injuries at wide receiver, right? Then you lost two guys who are quality, high-major college football players. But I think replacing that leadership is the thing. And but Bo Barnes, I think, is going to be a really good player. I think Nick Brooks, if he locks in, can be a high NFL draft pick. Nothing's changed my mind about that. That guy has all the talent in the world. But there's going to be look-backs, and we've said this. There's going to be guys off this list. There's going to be multiple guys off this list that are going to be drafted or NFL training camps that just left Texas. Some of those guys are going to develop and end up in camp. Some of these guys are going to be drafted players a year from now. The guys coming in, obviously there's some high draft picks in there, some guys that also have a chance to develop and be draft picks. That stuff probably will even itself out a little bit. And if Cam Coleman has a great year, he may be a top 15 pick. If Rasheem Biles has another great year, I think he's going to get drafted higher than people think right now. And you have to see where some of these other guys go. I think Bo Maskell will end up in an NFL training camp, if not a draft pick, depending on how he tests. So you're going to have a lot of that. But I think the leadership lost for Texas because those guys won some games, and they did a lot of that off-season work and a lot of that leading of off-season work that has to be replaced.
Yeah, and I got a jet here, guys, but I only thing I would leave on that, Jerry, is I would be more concerned if you didn't have Colin Simmons, if you didn't have Arch Manning, if you didn't have Jelani McDonald, if Blake Gideon wasn't coming back, if so like there's a lot that I think is there that assuages a lot of that concern for me otherwise. So I got a jet, run to a doctor appointment. Yeah, you nailed it, Bobby. But love talking to you guys. I'll see y'all next week.
Bye, Marcus.
Marcus Myers. There we go. Welcome. Thanks, Marcus. Marcus makes a good point. I mean, it's the totality of the team, not just any one piece. That list is fairly talented to your description, Jerry. Of the exits. You said there'll be guys in training camps, if not drafted, that come from it. I agree with that. But given the relative strength of the team, the cuts could have definitely went deeper. And we'll see exactly what happens when you keep a Trevor Gooseby, a Brandon Baker, guys like that. I think it's healthy for the team. I was just noticing, you guys realize that Texas lost 5 running backs to the transfer portal?
Yeah,
5 of 6. Only James Simon will be the only returner from last year at running back.
Yeah.
That is an amazing number. 5 of 6. Woo. So that's a remake. Now they went out and got 2 of the best in the portal that you could possibly get in Raleek Brown and Hollywood Smothers. They got Derek Cooper coming in. But the point being, that's a large turnover. 5 out of 6 in an entire room that are all going to be learning the plays at the same time, by the way. That could be one of the issues that I can foresee.
Well, we got more to talk about. Of course, we're going to take some questions here in just a moment. But first, Jerry, I'm going to let you tell everyone about one of your favorite stops on the road, and that's Hays City Store.
Oh, I can absolutely do that, guys. Hays City Store is one of my favorites. The first time I went to Hays City Store, it was instantly became one of my favorite places, and that leads to why there are very few restaurants that once you go to, you immediately know they are just special. As I said, Hays City Store is one of those places. It's scratch-made Texas comfort food. They've got their famous truck stop enchiladas, award-winning chicken fried steak, the homemade desserts. All of it's absolutely delicious, and all of it is from scratch. You can watch them make it. There's also live music 6 nights a week with 50 beer taps, ice-cold long necks, and tasty margaritas. It is truly a great atmosphere. There are 13 TVs alone in their ice house, perfect for game days. And they even serve brunch on every Sunday from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Hays City Store is dog friendly, and they have a tree net for kids. Join the folks at Hays City Store and bring your whole crew. For more information, check out the website at HaysCityStoreTX.com. Hays City Store, it's uniquely Texas, and you need to go if you haven't been there.
And I'm going to tell everyone about our friends at Prize Picks. Whether you're starting a new routine or making player picks for the first time, trying something new can be hard. But in life and on Prize Picks, it always feels good to be right. And with high-pressure playoff matchups every weekend, elite hoops action almost every night, the action never stops. Prize Picks lets you take control. Of course, the national championship is tonight. And we'll talk about that here in a moment. So this week I locked in Carson Beck to have at least a passing touchdown, Fernando Mendoza to have more than 1.5 passing touchdowns, Indiana wide receiver Charlie Becker to have more than 29.5 receiving yards, and Miami running back Mark Fletcher to have more than 59.5 rushing yards. And with the new social feeds feature, you can share Prize Picks with your friends and copy lineups like mine with a single click. Copy lineups you like or use them as inspiration for your own picks. You can even follow Prize Picks partners like us at OTF or anybody else and tell and fade those picks with just one click. Don't forget, Prize Picks is now available in all 50 states, including California, Florida, Georgia, and right here in the best state of all, Texas. So download the Prize Picks app today. Use code ONTEXAS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, code ONTEXAS will get you $50 in lineups after you play that first $5 lineup. And that's Prize Picks, where it's good to be right. Well, since I just mentioned the national championship, we might as well talk about it, guys. I'm trying to bring the line up here if you'll bear with me, but it looks like Indiana, according to ESPN Analytics, 68.3% chance to win tonight. Miami with the 31.7, and then the line right now 8.5.
It's gone up to 8.5. That's it. They know Indiana can really scout teams, I think. So it started at 7.5. It's 8.5 nearing kickoff. Over under 48.5. I think it's going to be Bobby, you mentioned Indiana does a good job getting out on people. They can scout great. They've done a good job getting out on people, getting up on people, and placing pressure on people as a high executing team. And if a team that executes and doesn't beat themselves gets up early, that places a lot of pressure on an opponent. I think it'll be so interesting. Miami has to play their most disciplined game of the year because they push the envelope as far as they can with post whistle physicality. And they're going to have to be very careful in this game. Rod and I were talking about it last night, Bobby. It's going to be interesting to see how this game's officiated tonight, because these games are different because they're so intense. The players can get a little over the edge with their physicality, especially early in games like this. How is this game? I think it's a Big 12 officiating crew. How is this game going to be officiated?
Because there won't be many holding calls.
That stuff does matter. And when you get in an NCAA tournament, if it's officiating crews you're not familiar with, how is the game officiated? How can that change how a game plays out? I think the big thing is, Carson Beck, he played really well. And I've been on Carson Beck. He played well last week when it mattered. That's as good as he's played when it mattered. He's got to protect the football. But I think it'll be interesting to see if Miami, if they can actually use that physicality and they can actually lean on Indiana maybe a way that nobody has yet this season. That's going to be it for Miami in my mind in this game.
I think I agree with Jerry. Overall, I do think that if Indiana gets up early, you put Carson Beck in a situation where he presses, and historically when he presses, he throws interceptions.
Yeah.
Now, while he's played better, he was never really behind against Ole Miss, never really behind against A&M. So I just want to put that out there. I think that one of the teams that gave Indiana problems in the regular season was Penn State. And you think about what Penn State did. They had a really good defense. Even with all the losses, they had really talented defensive players.
Oh, yeah.
And when they decided they could really stop the run. And then secondarily, they had two running backs that could hit you. Power running backs, power run. And I think they are analogous in some ways to Miami, but Miami was a better team this year than Penn State. And Indiana was a road game at Penn State, and it took them a last-second touchdown throw, right, to eke out a victory there. I think that's the kind of matchup this is. But if Indiana, for whatever reason, gets up 2 scores and Miami doesn't strike back immediately, I think this game's toast for Miami. And the reason why is I just don't think they have the team to come from behind. That the quarterback's not made that way. The style of offense they run is not made that way. And so we'll see what occurs. But I think this is more 50-50 than it is whatever the percentage of ESPN put up there. And I don't care about the line because I will say this, in a close game, I'm going with Miami over Indiana because they've played more close games. They have more history with it this season. And that history tends to be very valuable late in the year. The familiarity with playing under pressure. Indiana's been so good that they've kind of dog walked people at times this season. And because of that, if it gets tight late, I'm actually going with Miami. If it's, that's just where I'm at with it. I think that Indiana's really good. Indiana still, I just don't know if they're the 16-0 team that everybody thinks. Maybe I'm wrong.
I think one of the weirdest things about this game, or here's an oddity about this game. You could say each team is a team of destiny. Normally there's a team of destiny. If people say, oh, it's Indiana, they're a team of destiny. The whole Kirk Cincinnati thing and what they've done, it's amazing, unbelievable, just an otherworldly turnaround in a short amount of time. But then you look at Miami and they were like, they weren't going to be in the playoffs. 2 days before the playoffs was announced, everybody thought it was going to be Notre Dame and Miami wasn't going to get in, and they were left for dead after their second loss. They wouldn't get in. We actually have two teams that are kind of teams of destiny right now. Very rarely in sports do two teams of destiny come together to play for it all. So that's pretty interesting because everybody counted Miami out. Nobody thought they were going to be in. Even a day before they announced, they thought Notre Dame was going to be in. It wasn't going to be Miami. So now they've kind of taken on that team of destiny. Indiana has been on that team of destiny all season. It's an interesting game.
I want to say this. Don't ever call Miami a team of destiny in my presence. I don't like Miami. Oh, I was on the sideline, my friends, at that Cotton Bowl. I don't have much for Miami ever. Team of destiny. Give me a break.
Yeah.
Team of guys like John Ruiz. Anyways, team of destiny.
I like
break. Hamilton, you really stretched on that one. I'll just put it that way.
They are.
You stretch. They are for them. That's about it. Nobody else considers them that, except for Jerry Hamilton. Team.
We got a super chat here from Terrence. And he says, hey, Bobby and Jerry, remember when Sark said the days of the undefeated is over? Do you think he'll apologize to Indiana if they beat the team of destiny tonight?
Jesus Christ. Now Blake's in on the act. I look, Sark doesn't owe anyone an apology for anything. I think that would Indiana be undefeated had they played in the SEC? Fair question.
And maybe this year.
The Big Ten is a top-heavy league. It just is. And I'm not mad about that. And it doesn't mean that top heaviness can't be better than the top of the SEC. I think it probably was this year. In fact, the problem that Sark has and that everybody that plays in the SEC has is that there is no week off. There's legitimately no week. There's no Rutgers right now in the SEC. Kentucky has what, 2 times as many NFL players than Rutgers does. You know, there's no South Carolina, bad football team this year. They got a first-round quarterback. They got a first-round defensive end. I mean, Florida, bad football team this year. Beat Texas, but bad football team. How many first-round draft picks and elite players do they have? That's the difference between the two leagues. So I don't have a problem with Sark saying that based on the fact that they play in the SEC. Now, some team will come up and be an anomaly at some point. But I still think the Big Ten is a good league. It's just top-heavy. That's all.
And our next super chat this morning from Jeff Carey. He says, Jerry and Bobby, can you go through how you think the portal is going to play out over the next few days, weeks, and months in general and for Texas?
Yeah, I mean, I can take that if you want me to, Jerry. I think Texas is going to spend the next week going hard in the portal to see if there's anybody left out there. There are a couple of big names still expected in the portal. One of them is Damon Wilson. He just visited Texas Tech over the weekend. Texas continues to give some level of attempt there, in my opinion. Principal Umumilian, who is going into the portal, but maybe headed for LSU if he does. He's the Ole Miss pass rusher that had 9 sacks this year. Texas would like to give chase there. Not sure if they're going to get an opportunity based on some issues with Ole Miss trying to keep him at Ole Miss. Beyond that, it's all about offensive line, in my opinion, and then just filling out the roster. So I think you can look at a couple of big swings, potentially, offensive line being a priority, and then the rest, I think they're going to be similar to Marcus Boswell that we just saw on Sunday. Local ties, wants to come back. It's not a big NIL deal where they're spending, gobs of money. He gets a scholarship at Texas. I think that's what you're going to see mostly in the portal over the next, not just the next week, but maybe the next 3 or 4 months even, along with some grad transfers at that time. Guys that are still trying to graduate from their existing school.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting how many depth pieces Texas adds late here. And I mean outside of even the next couple of weeks. How deep are they going to go on adding depth? Even if just for this season, because as everybody's adapting to this first one-time 2-week transfer portal mad rush, and there not being a spring portal window. I'm going to be interested to see, because we've had Texas about 16 to 18 guys in the portal. They have 16 counting the long snapper, which we didn't have on our original list. So I think 3-4 spots potentially to shore up some depth, but I'm not saying that has to come in the next week and a half, or 2 weeks. It'll be interesting to see how deep some of these schools go to ensure they have depth going into the season, because I do think there's a couple of positions Texas, outside of the ones talked about, that I think Texas could still add. They could add a experienced corner in case they have an injury, right? I mean, there's a lot of things that can be done still with the roster. You could add another linebacker that's a older guy in college, has 1 year left, just to give yourself depth, to give yourself some cover. So it'll be interesting to see how deep some of these programs go. By the way, I think LSU already has 93 players. They're going to go to 100, I hear. So they're going to be one that's going to try to take advantage in year one under Lane Kiffin. They're probably going to end up with around 100 scholarship players this year, which is kind of crazy to where they were 3 weeks ago. So they're going to.
But he was letting it go of his entire offensive line, by the way.
Yep. He's going to end up with probably about 100 scholarship players from what it sounds like, which is crazy.
Speaking of LSU, Jordan Seaton, the big offensive lineman, was on LSU's campus yesterday, I believe. He's scheduled to be at Oregon this weekend. He's already seen Texas. Who else did he see, Jerry?
Miami,
and one other.
Mississippi State, which is a throwaway business.
So that's still an ongoing recruitment. Is Texas involved in there? I want to say this. I don't think that Texas is as involved as they once were. Let's see if Texas circles back late before the young man makes a decision.
Yeah.
The next super chat this morning comes from McCleskey, and he says, how do programs need to evolve to retain players in the NIL era? Do you play younger guys, lean into the alumni network / life after football, or is it a lost cause and the portal is life until there's a CBA?
No, and I think there's a couple of things here that I would suggest. Multi-year contracts for certain players, although the validity of those are being challenged right now by Darian Mensah, the quarterback at Duke. He has put his name into the transfer portal, and he's basically telling them, no, even though I signed a 2-year deal, I want to spend my last year somewhere else. So the easy answer for me is retention can be in multi-year deals. But if there's no retention certainty, what's the real value there? I think you ask a really good question, and I don't know that anybody has the answer. I do think you can do some things without the collective bargaining agreement, but ultimately these players can move where they want. And until there's some sort of rules that everybody agrees to and adheres to, like Miami knowingly breaking a contract with Darian Mensah is a problem. Now, maybe the way they wrote the contract is different or whatever. But the point being, that's a problem. And if you have two teams or teams that are in the same conference even that aren't going to play by the same rules, you can't. Yeah, but if you penalize transferring, you're penalizing the players. That's not fair. I mean, what if they truly don't like where they're at? Like, what if
it goes to right CBA, but there needs to be, and I'm just going to stay on this because I think it's eventually going to have to happen. When guys sign, whether it's a 2-year deal, 1-year deal, there needs to be buyouts on both sides. So if a kid says, "Hey, I got a better offer here," or "I don't like it here," okay, there's a buyout that comes with that, and that buyout depends on how much that contract is. And I think on the other side, if a school just wants to pretty much cut guys, they should have to pay a buyout as well. I mean, that's the way it should be. There has to be some accountability on both sides if you're just ready to bounce, or if you're ready to bounce a guy. I think there needs to be buyouts. Now, I think ultimately it needs to be 2-year contracts with that, but that's years down the line. But that's what needs to happen. There needs to be buyouts on that player agent side, and it's a percentage of what that contract is. And the same thing for the colleges. If you just want to say, "Hey, we missed on this guy, we swung and missed," which happens. He's not as good as we thought, so we don't want to pay him this year too. Well, then there needs to be a buyout that comes with that as well. There has to be some accountability on both sides, and there has to be something to keep the colleges. And if you want Darian Mensah bad enough that you're willing to pay Duke $5 million or something, that's all. Hey, we can talk at that point. But there needs to be the buyouts.
Well, if by putting a buyout in, though, you may not get the player. It's just like a college football coach. The college football coaches, for them to leave, the buyout isn't going to be very large. For you to buy them out of the contract because you don't want them anymore is going to be large. I think buyouts can actually be negatives towards somebody for signing with you. Briefly, I want to bring up something that happened yesterday or over the weekend that relates to this. University of Miami's president came out and said, "Why is there a salary cap at all?" He basically said that. He goes, "Why are we trying to restrict trade? Why don't we just let the market take care of itself?" And in other words, instead of trying to go with all these guardrails, why not just the people that want to compete and let it go? And, I don't know the answer here. That's certainly a very far-reaching thought that may have more merit than the current situation, actually. But I don't think it's perfect either.
No.
So there's some movement there. Also, they had a meeting over the weekend about whether or not they wanted to move the college football playoff from 12 teams to 16 or 14 or even to 24. And they are at an impasse currently. It is the SEC versus the Big Ten. The Big Ten wants 24 teams. The SEC wants a max of 16. The Big Ten's saying, well, y'all have 16 for the first couple of years, and then we'll have 24 the next couple of years. And Greg Sankey, the SEC commissioner, is just like, no, I'd rather stick at 12. So it looks like while they have until Friday to make a decision, as of right now, my guess is that we stick at 12 for the next 4 years, or at least for the next year, until, we can figure something out. Basically, the Big Ten just wants to blow it all up. Doubling the amount of teams in the playoff blows up bowl games. It blows up conference championships, all of these things. So we'll have to wait and see. They have until Friday to decide. If they can't come up with a new idea, then it just reverts to 12 teams again next season.
They need to go to 16 and leave it alone.
Well, okay, go convince the Big Ten. Big Ten doesn't make enough money on their conference championship game is what the reality is. It's all about money.
Yeah, but it needs to get to 6. However they do it, needs to get to 16, and that's done. Everybody plays 4 games. Everybody has to, if you're going to win a national championship. We have
Indiana in this 2-year deal with 12 teams. Indiana is still the only team, by the way, that has won its first round game after receiving a bye.
Yeah.
So I do think that you want to play in your first round game. 24 blows up the entire bowl system, by the way.
Yeah.
Blows it up.
Nah.
Okay, our next super chat this morning comes from Juan. Thank you, Juan. He says, Bobby, I asked this question on last night's live stream, but he wants your opinion. What do you think of Gary Patterson talking to USC about the defensive coordinator job there?
So I think Gary Patterson, really good coach, obviously, good evaluator, all of those things. At some point you ask yourself, is Gary Patterson or anybody the solution to a Lincoln Riley coached football team? Because until or unless Lincoln Riley changes how he practices, I don't think the defensive coaching staff has a fair shot. Not tackling to the ground, more 7-on-7 work, that kind of stuff. So while I think he's very good and would be an addition to any staff, period, I think everybody agrees with that. I don't know that anybody can say that they're going to dramatically improve a defense with Lincoln Riley as the head coach. That's my opinion.
I think I said last night, I think there's some similarities to Muschamp coming to Texas if Gary Patterson goes to USC. I think there's some, from that physicality standpoint, from bringing that tough-minded to the defense, he'd be the head coach. I think there's some similarities there.
I think it's all about not allowing them to practice those things, though, Jerry. Like Mac allowed them to practice harder. Lincoln Riley is not going to change. Yeah. You know what I mean? I agree with you.
Yeah.
He's really good player, really good coach. I just don't think I think Lincoln Riley's the problem, not who the defense coordinator is.
Jerry, why don't you tell us about Vaughn Lane this morning?
I can do that. The holiday season is over. It's back to business, meetings, conferences, and packed travel calendars. If you're still flying short routes or driving hours between cities, there's a better way to get there. Vaughn Lane. Vaughn Lane delivers a first-class travel experience on the ground. You board in minutes at a private hotel terminal, settle into just one of 22 oversized leather seats, and enjoy complimentary Wi-Fi, snacks, beverages, and hot towel service on every single trip. On select departures, Vaughn Lane also offers complimentary meals, making travel time genuinely productive and relaxing. I think Eric, 76 in our chat, just passed a Vaughn Lane on the highway somewhere. One recent rider put it best: this is actually one of the best traveling experiences I've ever had. I don't think I'll ever drive myself to the Houston area again. Boy, would I like to say that. The host was amazing, better than any flight attendant I've ever had. Great service, great amenities, and a great, comfortable ride. Vaughn Lane is also rolling out Starlink internet across the fleet, making complimentary Wi-Fi even faster and more reliable, perfect for staying connected on the way to meetings and conferences. Vaughn Lane serves Austin, Dallas, Houston, San Antonio, Fort Worth, Plano, the Woodlands, Nashville, Memphis, Atlanta, and Knoxville. As they continue to grow, it can just say Vaughn Lane serves everybody. And if you're traveling with a team, you can even charter your own Vaughn Lane. That could come in handy for our trips to LSU next year, Tennessee. There's some big road trips coming up for Texas fans next year, designing a trip from pickup to drop off. Visit VaughnLane.com, and if it's your first time riding, enter OTF26, new code 26, year change, OTF26 at checkout to receive $20 off your first trip. What is Vaughn Lane? It's a private jet on wheels with good food.
And Bobby, I'm going to let you tell everyone about Tecovas.
Wintertime is prime boot season. Anywhere worth going is worth going in good boots. Find your perfect pair with Tecovas. Tecovas is stewarding the future of the American West, honoring its heritage, elevating its craft, and shaping a lifestyle rooted in authenticity and confidence. Founded in 2015, headquartered in our Austin, Texas. Start the year off right with a new pair of Tecovas Western boots. Tecovas heritage-made cowboy boots are crafted in over 200 steps by hand in Leon, Mexico. From the first stitch to the final lemonwood peg, Tecovas boots are made in over 200 steps. Look, if you're looking for great boots, boots that are easily wearable because they're already broken in by the time you get them, make sure you check out Tecovas. They also have apparel now from premium leather goods like wallets, belts, and more. Everything at Tecovas, though, is handcrafted with the same attention to detail and timeless style. Guys, I'm a big fan of Tecovas boots. I wear them all the time. Right now, get 10% off at tecovas.com/Texas football when you sign up for email and text. That's 10% off at tecovas.com/Texas football. Tecovas.com/Texas football. See site for details. Tecovas, fellas, point your toes west.
All right. Well, let's jump back into some more super chats this morning. We got a couple of others we need to get to. This one here from Rocky P. Thank you, Rocky. He says the visitor list this year for Junior Day seemed light on offensive skill positions. Is that a concern? Also, seeing Whaley in his maroon upset his stomach a lot. We cannot let that happen, says Rocky.
Well, there was a couple of big national track meets. You have basketball going on. You got a lot of stuff going on. Easton Royal had a track meet, I believe, last weekend. So, and I think Texas is still in. I want to say this, and I always say this about these junior days. There may be a lot of kids there, but Texas is still in evaluation mode. Some of those kids, that evaluation process was ongoing. Texas was out and offered a lot of out-of-state kids last week. We'll see how many of those guys come to campus this spring. I think Texas is still in evaluation mode in a big way. Jabbar Jaluk seeing some of these running backs in the state of Texas in person this year for the first time since being at Texas this month. I just think there's a lot of evaluation still going on, and who they work to get on campus in the spring, I think will be very big. I think the offensive line guys have been pretty established in state for a while in this class. I mean, you have to get same guys, especially after Kamara moved to Gilmer. I mean, Peyton Miller's a center, right? Brian Swanson, Kamara, Kennedy Brown, who has an injured foot right now, and may not be as high on some people's boards as he is in national ranking, but a really good prospect. Then you have a couple other guys in state. So I think those are guys, the defensive line, some of those names have popped up earlier. There's more depth on the defensive line. There were 2 or 3 guys on this junior day that Texas hasn't offered. They're taking a look at. One guy they have offered, Jason Johnson out of Atascocita, who was injured this year, part of the season, who hasn't got much run because the Jalen Brewsters and Adrian Redmonds and all those guys are sucking up all the rankings oxygen in the room. But I would say on the skill position, guys, I'm going to be waiting to see who that comes in the spring. Sometimes they do around Texas relays as well for some visits there. But those kids' track season starts earlier and earlier. I mean, kids are already well into track practice right now. So some of those kids had that. There was a big national track meet. But again, I think Texas is still very much in evaluation mode there. And Muschamp at the defensive skill positions. They had Montre Jackson. John Meredith didn't make it in. He wanted to make it in. Don't worry that he didn't make it in. Texas is very much in it. But I still think there's a lot of evaluations going on there right now.
Hey, I want to say this. Chris Whaley's son, Jerry, was in Aggieland this weekend. I didn't see Chris Whaley put a thumbs up, though. I didn't see any gig 'em from him. Tell folks about Chris Whaley's son, former Longhorn, played in the NFL. His son now up in East Texas. Chris is up there with him. Tell him about him.
Yeah, a really good athlete. He's a younger kid. He's a 2028 kid. So I know where everybody's going with the jokes that I'm not even worried about that. And by the way, what people didn't realize about that, and I was looking this up to make sure, but Chris Whaley was not wearing A&M hoodie. He was wearing Atlanta Jackrabbits, which is very similar colored. I don't think Chris Whaley will be wearing an A&M hoodie unless he's forced to. And C.J. Whaley, his son, will be one that Texas goes after. So I don't think you have to worry about that. But he was wearing his Atlanta football hoodie, which I think if people just looked at the photo that his son put out on social media. It looked like he was wearing A&M gear, and that was not the case. He was wearing the Atlanta Jackrabbits. See there, you see the maroon there of CJ Whaley. A tremendous athlete, plays at almost at the top of the square in basketball. He's got really good vertical pop. You see there, he's got some thickness to his frame. How big is he going to get? He's gone from 6'4", 175 to about 195, closing on 200 now. How big is he going to get? Is he going to stay? I mean, because Chris was the same way. Chris was a running back coming up out of high school. He had a little hitch in his giddy up, but still got in there. Chris Whaley ended up being 240 pounds his senior year playing running back in high school, and then ended up being a 300-pound defensive tackle in NFL training camp. How big is CJ? If you look at the thickness of his frame right now, his lower body, CJ Whaley's going to be a big kid. Is he going to end up being Nick Townsend? Is he going to end up being a tight end? Is that where he's going to end up? Because if he's this big now, not even just now halfway through his sophomore year and playing basketball and running track, what's he going to be like when he's football strength and conditioning focused at the next level? Probably a lot more than 195 on that frame.
Well, before we get to our next super chat, I meant to read this earlier and I forgot. So my apologies to R. Charnell, but he says, good morning from an elliptical machine in Tulsa, doing an hour on his 50th birthday. Wow. Start called and said I'd get a commitment for my birthday, but happy birthday, R. Charnell.
Oh boy. Happy birthday, Art. If you can do an hour on the elliptical at 50, you're headed in the right direction, my brother. That's right. All I can say. I don't know if you're going to get a commitment today. I don't have one in the books for you for right now. Could happen, but I don't have one in the books.
You never know. And then G3 Burger or Gurr Burger, I guess. What was the deal with Ricky Stewart?
Had a big life experience right before as he was getting to Texas. And I'd be interested to see when he plays football again. And he's a really talented kid, tough, physical kid, can really run. I hope he gets back to football at some point, but we'll see if he does.
And then we got time for a few more questions here. Let's see. Let's take this one from CDib44. He says, should we have saved the Cam Coleman money and secured several more high-profile offensive linemen?
No, not really, because they're mutually exclusive. I'll just put it that way. Texas had money in the bank to go get Jordan Seaton if they wanted Jordan Seaton, guys. So no, I think that's a no. The two issues, even though all the money comes from the same pot, Texas was loaded and ready to go after it. I think that we'll see where they go and who they get the rest of the way from the offensive line. But those two things were mutually exclusive at some level. Texas is still swinging big.
And Bobby, before we get to our last question or two, can you tell everyone about John Donovan one last time?
Sure can. John, thank you so much for your sponsorship. President, Longhorn Wealth Management Group. Also a proud Texas Exes Life member who served on the Dallas Texas Exes board for 15 years and now helps lead the Collin County Texas Exes chapter, while also consistently serving his fellow Longhorns as a certified financial planner and the founder of Longhorn Wealth Management. John wants to let all of the On Texas football family know that January is National Financial Wellness Month. So he wants to encourage everyone to take some time to really examine the state of their own financial wellness. To help you do that, John is offering all OTF fans a free 90-minute private consultation to learn how a CFP like John can help you properly evaluate your current financial plans and then help structure them to maximize your wealth, minimize your taxes, and ensure your legacy and overall financial wellness. Schedule your free 90-minute consultation with John. Simply call the Longhorn Wealth Team, 972-707-4900. That's 972-707-4900. Or schedule it online, longhornwealth.net. John sends a heartfelt hook-em to all the OTF family and hope everyone enjoys this MLK holiday. Hook-em from John Donovan and the Longhorn Wealth Management Group.
Yeah. Okay, well, as I said, time for a question, one or two more questions. Jerry, going to put you on the spot here. Burn-ins. It says it's so early for 2027, but any highs?
Not that I would put out at this point in time. I think there's some guys certainly learning leaning to Texas. And I think there's some guys Texas feels really good about. But all these guys, unless they really change course right now, all plan to go through the June OV process. And what's going to be interesting for me is if these colleges are truly serious about signing 4 to 5 less high school players at the major schools, there's going to be those kids. Some of these kids have more NIL leverage, or the agents think they do now. The highly ranked guys, and people are going to be battling on the same players more. That's what one thing that can change on this is there's going to be some really interesting. Because because I've said Mendoza, because I think he asked an Indiana question one time. I was thinking about Mendoza, but I think there's going to be some real interesting battles coming up here. Because if these schools sign 4 to 5 less high school kids a year moving forward, and I'm not saying all of them are, but if some of them do, there's going to be more battles over the same players because they're all going to be going after the elite, the guys they consider the elite players, and so the agents are going to think they have more leverage. It's going to be interesting to watch it play out.
Well, they will have more leverage with some and less with others.
Yeah, but it'll depend on how bad the colleges want the players. They're going to have more leverage.
And then Phil here, we went from recruiting. Now we're going to go to the portal. Phil says over under on 1 more. Will Texas take another portal player? Basically.
Oh yeah,
Over.
And we will close with this one. Woodron Pettis says, are we going to see Texas recruit Texas more now since local kids tend not to transfer as much?
I think that the back end of the recruiting class, yes.
I think it'll be interesting because while I get the point, and some people have been talking about that on the chat for a long time, there's been one university of mostly Texas players that's won a national championship in about to be 56 years. That was Texas in 05, one. So everybody's like, oh, just recruit more in-state guys. Well, there's a reason everybody, A&M includes, looking around saying, hold on. That's happened one time in 56 years. That is not actually the formula. It's just reality. And I love Texas high school football. My dad coached high school football for 38 years in Texas. But that is not the reality. 1 in 56 years is not what you should do. And you had Superman to get you over the top.
Yeah, I think they're talking about more about the back end, not necessarily the frontline guys that can be from wherever, whether it's Arch Manning from Louisiana or Derek Cooper from Florida or what have you. I think they're talking more about the guys that round out your recruiting class.
Yeah, I know the chat all year has been Texas needs to sign more in-state players. The reality is 1 in 56 years tells you that's not the answer.
Yeah, I agree with Jerry on that. It's not look, you go where the best players are. And some years that's in Texas, some years it's not.
Yeah.
Point blank. So you got to go and you got to get the ones you can sign too, because, just because they're in Texas doesn't mean Texas is automatically going to get them. Just because they're in Georgia, by the way, doesn't mean Georgia's going to automatically get them. What did Georgia sign this year? 2 of the top 10 players in their own state. Georgia.
Yeah.
Now, so
yeah.
I think that.
And I think that to that, we've talked about this before. There's been so much population move into Atlanta and Georgia and Dallas, DFW, and Houston. Times have changed in these states, even places in Florida, Orlando, right? These kids they didn't grow up with Florida State rivalry in the state of Florida as many kids now. Georgia, just wearing Georgia jerseys, Texas versus A&M. But they didn't all grow up with that mindset and that mentality. So too many kids have moved into those states. So it's different. It's just so different now. When you go to high schools and you talk to kids, there's not as much of that regional in-state school talk. It's just so different now.
All right, guys. Well, that's going to do it for today's episode of Coffee and Football presented by John Donovan and Longhorn Wealth Management Group. We want to thank them, along with Prize Picks, Tacovas, Hayes City Store, and Vaughn Lane for sponsoring today's show. Of course, thank you all for tuning in as well, and thank you to Marcus. Bobby, what do you have later today?
We got a portal update coming up here in a couple hours. Going to go over the guys that Texas is still after. Also, we have a live stream tonight. Coach Shipley hopefully joins us. We're not sure if he's going to be able to make it or not, along with Rod and CJ. And then we'll have other news and notes throughout the day over on ontexasfootball.com. And if there is breaking news, you can guarantee that we will break in here at On Texas Football, YouTube and podcast to give you guys the very, very latest.
There you go. Well, we will be back tomorrow morning. Hope you all have a great day today. So for Bobby Burton and Jerry Hamilton, I'm Blake Monroe, and we'll see you then.
Ogham Horns.